the Chiefs have been one of those two support champions.
Well, let's find out exactly where they're going to go. We are into the draft for our first game here of our final best of 5 here between the Direwolves and the Chiefs. The Chiefs will start on the red side. That's what they wanted. Direwolves over on the blue here for game 1. Shyvana, Kalista, Morgana, the Wolves' first 3 bans, and Rek'Sai and that Hecarim. Get it out of here.
I mean, the Hecarim finally gets respect back. Only Legacy has been a team that has left Hecarim up against the Chiefs. But with this Fizz ban coming through, Janna is left open. You'd have to think they're going to snap it up. We've got to that stage where, once again, Janna is the top of the priority list, just because with how 5.6 works out, there isn't necessarily those must-pick, must-ban champions. Of course, the audience might say, what about Sejuani? She's available in this situation, but Spooks has shown he's so happy to pick up the Zac and try and match the CC engage with that champion. Janna's not locked in.
No.
It's actually going to be a Sivir first pick.
Yeah, first pick Sivir here is what the Wolves want. We've seen her almost make a resurgence in playoffs, weirdly enough. Was played a lot in the early split as the Chiefs answer. Powerful picks here. Silent and Janna, their first
It's
two.
a crazy thing that so many things have changed since week 1 that we're actually gone round in circle and we're back again. Sivir's the first pick, even though there's the likes of the hyper carries like Jinx who have a wonderful laning phase against Sivir. Sivir as a laning champion has been largely worked out, but with the Cinderhulk meta coming back, with it being so popular to go for the health stackers, the CC bots that need help gap closing, why not pick the On The Hunt? Why not pick Sivir for comp and just deal with the fact that the laning phase is not what it used to be?
No, and you know, as you said, get those big tanks around, get everyone moving around the map, rotate. We've seen both the Direwolves and the Chiefs play some of their best games in the split on Sivir and King. Some of his best stats come from that champion. Impressive to see Perfection draw 2 bans in this first game. I wonder if he'll ever creep to the 3 bans there, because Hecarim Fizz is a lot of respect, but the Direwolves are going to lock it in, and he's going to go over to Chopper, and Soul Strikes will get Sejuani.
But you really feel like Chiefs have got what they want, and they're happy giving these particular picks over to the Direwolves. They've taken the A+ support. 12-0 between the Direwolves and the Chiefs is Janna. They have that PS4. That opens up the like of Jinx, we've already said, has a wonderful laning matchup against the Sivir. Sion also has been a popular jungle pick coming through from Direwolves. Of course, Perfection, not known as the tank player, plays more the carries like the Fizz and Hecarim that have been banned away, and the Vladimir, which is available in this situation. So they've got Sion, likely going to be the top laner for Swiper. They've got their support, and the answering picks are Sejuani, who we've already discussed. We haven't seen Spooks put a big priority on that champion. Happy to pick up Zac and try and match the initiation dead, or go the other way. And we mentioned the Elise wasn't in the picks and bans, or at least in the contested picks. Elise 5.6, you see the Elise buffs come through. This tells me Elise, Lucian, they're playing for the mid game. They want to ensure that Direwolves can't get those hyper carry players like the Vladimir that would probably be for Perfection in the top lane going. They want to finish this game early.
Yeah, and they're going to get aggressive. That's how Chiefs get so many of their wins. Even if it's just on later game champions, they often, their style doesn't change even if the picks might adjust slightly here. So at least Lucian, a great opener there for the Chiefs. But the Wolves have a few picks to make here as well. And I like that you mentioned the Janna, the undefeated support between the two teams. The most played for both of them, though, after that, it's Annie, and it's a big pick here as well.
I mean, just human weird stats. 5-0 Janna, 4-0 Annie is Chuffer's record. So this is already undefeated, uncharted territory, because Janna, 7-0, also undefeated. One of these champions will finally have their first loss for the respective teams. 2-1 on Annie actually is his second most played here, Rosie. So we've seen the priorities come through. They've really been thinking about their solo lanes. They're going magic damage heavy. It's Vladimir and Cho'Gath.
Yeah, Cho and the Vlad coming through there for the Wolves. We had the Vladimir Hobbit for a while. Perfection showing a lot of comfort on that champion in the semifinals. But Sharp, I believe a new pick for him. It makes sense. Cho'Gath feels like a Sharp champion. Very defensive, good wave clear, but something different here to start things off.
And don't let this mistake you here, viewers. We know exactly where these picks are going to go. Even though they're flexible champions, this will be a Vladimir top. Perfection brought that out in the last game of the semifinals. The Cho'Gath mid makes a lot of sense. As you said, he's more of a wave clear player, but the important factor, AP Cho'Gath mid is so good against assassins, which of course is Swiffer's wheelhouse. You don't want to play the Ahri, you don't want to play the Zed against Cho'Gath. You have to go for a wave clear champion. You have to go for a control pick, and damned if they didn't get both in Anivia.
Yeah, big farming here, and this was the combo that the Chiefs used in their first game against Immunity in that semifinal as well. The Anivia release, we talk about Anivia loves to go to a farm, a great wave clear champion, but don't be too deceived there. Anivia does some very strong early game damage.
I mean, that Frostbite E does so much damage early. It actually goes up to 350 base damage at level 9. And of course, the Flash Frost, the Q, the stun that they're able to get in here. We got Cocoon Flash Frost. We're talking about huge amount of targeted CC very early into the game. Elise has always been known about early game damage and control. We're going to see some crazy mid-game focus coming through. But remember, it is a Cho'Gath. Base health is high after level 6, even starts to pile on the health. Getting an assassination on Cho'Gath, no easy feat.
No, with all that CC as well. A great follow-up. We talk about Sharp, more of a utility player, a big role player for his carries. We've got the Sivir and the Vladimir here as well. I have to think here in the first game, Papa Smoothie, both teams got exactly what they wanted.
I feel like maybe the Chiefs had the slight edge just because they forced Direwolves into reactionary picks. They weren't necessarily prioritizing themselves. It doesn't feel like Direwolves took anything away from the Chiefs, whereas you'd look at champions like Janna and say, okay, maybe those were taken away from the Direwolves. But it's still a really exciting lineup, and both teams are playing to their strengths. Mid-game has always been the peak of the play coming through from the Chiefs. The Direwolves, they've got a late-game hyper carry in the top lane against Sion. We've already seen Vladimir versus Sion. Pretty good matchup for Vladimir. But one thing we have to mention, ladies and gentlemen, even though we expect perfection to go off in a Direwolves victory, Chiefs have already showed they always keep that carry top laner on a short leash. They always send multiple members, craft strategies around keeping perfection down, the MVP leader for the Direwolves.
Well, we'll have to see if the Chiefs can hold down perfection one more time, if he will be unleashed like he was in the semi-final. We are here for our first game of our grand final, the Direwolves versus the Chiefs.
So exciting. We're looking at just some of the early rotations. Will we see the defensive fans come out? It's a massive match. We already talked about the stakes. First ever OPL champions. The road to MSI through qualifying for the International Wildcard Invitational. In this situation, you'd probably expect a defensive fan with so much on the line.
Well, Direwolves are going to buck the trend at least for now and spread out as 4 now moving through. King actually scouting off in towards the mid as well. And the Wolves going to look for some early wards. What do we always talk about when we look at the Direwolves? Lane swap on perfection.
I mean, and this is definitely what the Direwolves want. They want to get as much information as possible on level 1 just to stop those perfection shenanigans that Chiefs have traditionally been trying to pull off against this team. They're walking through a ward themselves. Their path is very predictable, and there's a lot of early game power from the Chiefs level 1.
Yeah, good attempted stun there, but just some trades going to come back and forth. Sharp going to find the rupture there onto Swiper, but he's quite tanky. Rosie lining up the double knock up there. Q going to come in, finds onto 2 perfection. Going to get low force to flash. Soul Strikes now. Going to get chased. It's Swiffer. Flash Frost forward there onto perfection. Damage comes in and first blood goes to Rosie.
The Flash Frost, very difficult to say, but so effective in this game. Keeping perfection down looks a little bit easier when he no longer has Flash. And whatever plan Chiefs had, you can expect plenty of attention for Vladimir in the first 6 minutes of this game.
It's one of the hallmarks of the Chiefs' play across the region. Their level 1 is always consistently amazing here. Direwolves going to lick their wounds a bit. Start on the Krugs now for Soul Strikes. King and Shuffer going to help a hand out there. Spooks on the same side of the jungle. Going to get a bit of damage there done onto the Gromp. So jungle is not too hindered, but Swiper already starting his camp freely.
You can tell, of course, executed, but that's only a fantasy point dissuasion there. No, of course, kill credit coming over to the Direwolves. He'll pick up level 2 and port to lane against a Vladimir, who we've already mentioned doesn't have Flash. And just unpacking that level 1, I actually really like it from the Direwolves because that's 2 games in a row against the Chiefs. Okay, a couple of weeks ago in the OPL, where the Chiefs just got a big level 1 advantage and never allowed perfection to become late game ready. So they tried to be proactive. They didn't want to be the reactive team this time, but again, fell down in their aggression at trying to get wards. Chiefs with the early advantage.
Yeah, Swiffer going to get aggressive there at level 2. Again, Anivia, very strong early game damage, a good range on the auto attack there as well. So lots of harassment here in the matchup, and Sharp will be well contained in the early stages of the mid lane.
And already falling low in health, suddenly Elise looking very tasty to come gank in the mid, especially at level 3 when you have all your spells. In fact, there might be a solo, because there's a lot of damage.
Damage coming in, Swiffer going in, cancels an auto. Sharp gets ignited down, will not finish him off there as Sharp just manages to survive, and Swiffer, a small mechanical error, but a big one.
And this is a confidence player like Swiffer, top of the MVP charts, but I can tell you for a fact, Pastry Time, he is going to be hating himself for not being able to pick up that kill from just cancelling an auto attack himself. We have to watch the early phase in the mid lane because it might not end. And Spooks, he's spotted out Soul Strikes.
Yeah, coming in for aggression. Just going to go in 2v2. Level 3, they're up against Soul Strike. Going to come in. Repel will move him down, and Soul Strikes nowhere to go. Cocoon just missed there, and Spooks can't finish it.
A mechanical error from both the Spooks and Swiffer pair that have caused so much of the success for the Chiefs. However, Spooks getting Sejuani so low will be able to steal the blue buff away. Should have been, it already has 2 buffs himself, so it will be a 3 buff for the Elise. And the early game champion, the early game just looked even better.
A smart invade there from Spooks to go there with Sharp, forced out of the lane, but things going to calm down a little bit. We talked about standard lanes being what the Wolves wanted. Chopper and King just fine right now. Could Stonator Radio actually going to come in, but we'll get out of the way of that Boomerang Blade. I guess the only thing, though, it's not a fair fight here in these standard lanes, is it?
No, we have to return to the level 1 and see what it was the Chiefs got. Okay, you could tunnel on the first blood, but much more importantly, the top side of the map has no flash. All 3 of them used the flash on the invade. So at least we've already seen in previous week's patch, and we talked about how close enemy junglers have got to being able to counter jungle as Sejuani. They've been on the same side of the map. The Sejuani's been low. They just haven't had the vision. But knowing nobody has flash, you go in as Sharp.
Yeah, going to come in there trying to tag him through. Cocoon lines it up beautifully. Flash Frost comes in there as well. And the kill finally confirmed. Spooks picks it up.
And that's on a Cho'Gath with massive early base stats, with magic resist per level. One of the safest early game mid laners. Only thing that really takes away from safety is the melee range. And when he went to last hit a creep, suddenly the mid lane duo was there.
Yeah, we saw the combo again. We talked about it. Cocoon and that stun from Anivia coming through from massive early burst damage. And Sharp didn't get away that time.
I mean, burst damage from Anivia, percentage missing health damage from the Elise Q in melee form. Man, this game got really difficult for Daiwas. They're going to have to try and find an equal footing, and the mid-game comp, the mid-game's looking earlier and earlier, as there's already a 1,500 gold lead at 5 minutes for the Chiefs.
Yep, game starting exactly how the Chiefs want it, but perfection, despite losing his flash, relatively untouched here in the top lane. And this is a different thing. Perfection's been the heavy focus for the Chiefs in their matches historically in the split. And right now, Vladimir even getting that CS back to even. Flash will be back up very soon.
But now there's so much pressure on the Vladimir, who has such an item cap before he wants to fight. He needs the Will of the Ancients just to really get his laning to the oppressive factor that we all know. Level 9, Will of the Ancients. That's what we're looking for from Vladimir from his laning. And then he needs to transition into the teamfight items. Even though he double scales, he needs to get both ability power, health, all the resist that needs to come through to navigate a fight. And now suddenly, he's really the only one that's got through this early game relatively unscathed.
Yeah, Spooks coming in again, going to ward up the Gromp, and we'll see that it's there. There was actually a pink ward down there earlier that Spooks did not clear out, but he's going to go back in, wants to clear the waterway. Blue still not cleared for Soul Strikes as well, so that buff is not respawning anytime soon.
And so Vladimir's crept into the meta in the last couple of weeks. You might wonder why. Of course, Vladimir hasn't really seen any direct changes. He has been passed up in terms of viable top and mid laners. One thing to note, the jungle pressure on average has gotten so much lower. It's much more level 6 gankers like Sejuani and to a lesser extent the Zax of the world. It's not so much the Lee Sin and Jarvans, but at least definitely harkens back towards early game ganking, towards mid-game supremacy. And the Chiefs drafting that mid-game lineup, they want to ensure that Vladimir is not relevant when the enemy nexus explodes. They want to get this game over before we see 3-4 item Vladimir.
I mean, both these teams, honestly, have not really ascribed to the 5.6 jungle. Neither of them have played very many Sejuani games, if any at all, combined between the split and the playoffs here. So they both like their pressure, but Spooks opted back in for the Elise, and Soul Strikes with the Sejuani, you can tell already, struggling to keep up despite the even CS.
And the Sejuani pick in general just hasn't been a power pick in the Oceanic region. We've seen in other regions Sejuani really being a viable first pick champion, but not so much in the OPL. And as you mentioned, it's been more the mid-game champions with the return of Elise and, of course, Lee Sin and Jarvan that have found a lot of success.
Yeah, Spook's now going to counter jungle away the Raptors. Does get them down now, continuing to put pressure on Soul Strikes' map. We'll even leave one there as well, just as a bit of a message being sent there or left in the jungle. Spooks now going to rotate down, wants to find Soul Strikes, still with a level advantage, and trying to see if he can get a kill.
I mean, even without a level advantage, you're always going to have a dueling advantage as an Elise in the early game. She falls off in the late game in terms of damage, but as single targets, in a 2v2, in a 1v1, get the hell out of there, because the Elise does so much early damage.
Yeah, Soul Strikes in the back of the lane here in the bottom side now as well, looking to potentially get some aggression on, but Spooks, spotted by the ward, cleared it out with the Raptor sense from the buff that he stole away from the Direwolves jungle, and after those first early kills, could have maybe been 1 or 2 more, but things have calmed down a little bit.
And just going to pass over the blue buff. We're only just now getting to the second blue buff spawn stage in the game. Swiffer versus Sharp in the mid. Of course, there's going to be a CS advantage with the pressure that's been put out by Spooks in the mid lane. Level 7 to level 6. As a melee champion, even with good early wave clear, you still need a few more points in the Rupture before you can ranged wave clear as Cho'Gath.
Yeah, and Sharp's blue going to be heavily delayed because of all the counter jungling that Spooks did. So Swiffer with that blue in the tier, plus the components of the Catalyst all completed, going to have a good amount of pressure here. Sharp, now level 6, a lot safer and a bit more threatening with the Feast, providing some of the extra health, but Swiffer going to continue to harass him here.
It's worth knowing that Sharp needs to be pretty self-sufficient this game. They have the late spiking Sejuani, who wants to farm up, who needs items to be relevant, not necessarily... And she needs her lanes to do a lot of damage. And at this point, not really going to get that from either of her solo lanes, maybe from the Sivir in bottom with the Annie. But in general, looking for Cho'Gath to be self-sufficient and already struggling in the early game. And Spooks basically has the run of the jungle. He's had both Scuttle Crabs down during this game. They're starting over on the Dragon. Even though it's really a sin by the Direwolves, I don't really think they can contest.
I mean, the Direwolves often give up some of their early Dragons anyway. They're a team that surprisingly does not get that many Dragons, at least early first Dragons here. The Chiefs will take away the first. That's conducive to what they want. Boomerang Blade almost snuck in there, but Spooks smites it away.
Smites it away. They secure that first Dragon. You're completely right. In general, the Direwolves look for that long laning phase. If you look at just the semi-final games, average 10 minutes longer games from the Direwolves compared to the Chiefs. The Chiefs, they were finishing games early around the 25-minute mark. They've picked a comp to do a very similar thing here. The pass mark for Direwolves in the first 15 to 20 minutes is just to try and keep this gold disadvantage around the 1 to 2,000 and get items on Perfection and Sharp. Get those solo laners going, because Perfection in particular, plenty of items before he's looking to fight.
And it makes sense. It's not the Dragons they're as concerned with, because they can get them later once they've scaled up. It's the gold and the pressure from the turrets that they really don't like. So as long as the outer turrets are up for the Direwolves and the laning phase is continuing to go, you have to think in some ways that's a win for the team.
And it's been just the hallmark of a Direwolves win. It's been very long laning phases. Perfection staying in the top. King pushing in the bottom. They both overextend for CS more than any other team would rationally do, just because often it's without even wards or necessarily the defensive choice. It's just simple. If you have a hyper carry in the top lane, as we see with Perfection on Vladimir, the MVP leader for his team, King down the bottom lane, who has the most kills in the OPL, both of them push their lanes, and the enemy jungler, he can only choose one. They're both geographically disparate. They're in the top and the bottom lane of the map. You can't be in both places at once unless you're Rek'Sai and have some pretty sick tunnels down. And it's just hard to put out equal pressure. One of them has to get going.
Good pull there from Perfection, dodging that maxed up Q damage. Will continue getting health back. Level 9 now with the Hextech Revolver, so starting to get quite a bit stronger. Cinderhawk done now. Chuffer's coming into the mid. Swiffer in trouble there as Spook's going to try and run it up, but the teleport will move down there as well. That Swiper coming in for the Chiefs might pop the ulti, but Soul Strike's in the area. Ulti will land there. Sharp comes in. Rapture lands in onto Swiffer. He will get Egg there as the Hemo Blade drops off after he pops into Egg form. Soul Strike's coming back in as Rosie going to join in now as well. Swiper looking to go back and re-engage. Tornado will not reach. Chuffer will go down, and he's the only kill.
Yeah, an eventual 4v4 in the mid lane was won out by the Chiefs. They just have the earlier scaling. After the Rupture missed from Cho'Gath, they probably should have disengaged from that fight. It was an awkward communication situation where the stun came through from Chuffer with the flash Tibbers, and that caused the Rupture to miss. They should have disengaged. It would have been 0-all, but this result is another advantage coming through to the Chiefs.
And just the one kill, not too bad, but giving Radier free time on the turret as Lucian with an early BF sword is not what the Doctor ordered here for the Wolves here. He'll actually will get the turret. It looks like he'll get very close to as Rosie rejoins him, and as we said, when the Wolves turret starts falling, their laning phase kind of comes to an abrupt end that they don't want.
And at this point, they're going to try and keep the tower up a little bit longer. They have perfect defensive vision. It's already a risk for King to just stand on this tower, because of course it could be DPS down if there's multiple members in the area. No, they're just going to back away. They're not looking to end this laning phase that fast with the Lucian, because he doesn't have the Infinity Edge. He doesn't have his first big item to rotate. So he's going to sit on this situation, come back to bottom. They're already winning the lane. They're 21 CS up just through the early game pressure and just the fact that Elise always going to out-pressure Sejuani in the early game, especially with the fact that the ultimate, the Glacial Prison's been on cooldown for a while now.
Yeah, Berserker Greaves actually the next finish there for Radier, along with that pickaxe to join in equal with 80 items for King. So a bit more pushing pressure. You have to think if the Chiefs do want to rotate, that will help them out here. We can see Rotivators coming through for Swiffer, almost completed along with the tier around the 13-minute mark. So a good part-time there. And again, Sharp on the same side. Abyssal Scepter seems to be his first major pickup.
I mean, Abyssal Scepter's a massive pickup. Of course, in metas gone past, we might have seen the double Woda when it gave team-wide effects. But in this case, you've got Vlad and Cho'Gath. You've got double magic damage mid and top laners. So pick up the Abyssal Scepter. It'll help Vladimir's damage as well. And it suits him in his lane matchup against Anivia and, to be honest, Elise a lot of the time.
Yeah, and the Will of the Ancients now done for Perfection as well, starting to bully the Silent here in the lane. And you can see the 5 points in the transfusion, 3 up in Tides of Blood. This is Perfection's element. If the Direwolves can hold this position for about 10 more minutes, this is exactly exactly the type of game they want to play.
This lane, look, you don't have a lot of kill pressure on the Scion still. Of course, he's very close to his Spirit Visage, but you just can't be bullied out of lane by Scion. His base damages on his spells are no longer relevant when on a 3-4 second cooldown, you're getting a massive little bit of healing. So he can push this wave, he can control it as much as possible, and just the fact that he has pressure on top, that's why on your minimap you can see Sejuani finally actually able to do some counter jungling of her own, just because there's so much pressure in top.
Yeah, actually pulled the Mooning Waves just off the turret there for a bit, so actually freezing slightly up against Swiper. So Perfection looking good, but the first tower now going to Chiefs there in the bottom lane. It was sort of inevitable that it was going to go down, and the big question is, where do the Chiefs go now?
Because the Chiefs, they need to start pushing advantages around the map. They already have them from the comp they've picked, and just how the early laning phase has gone. This top lane is a bit of a wash from the Chiefs' perspective, and it should be the Direwolves and Perfection getting basically free farm. So it should be a 1v1 in the top, and the pressure's on the Chiefs to make that count in the other parts of the map.
Yeah, get those rotations going. Infinity Edge, not quite done yet for Radiant. Does have the crit cloak though, so looking potentially into mid now to push down out of the Cho'Gath. But Sharp, we talk about it, he likes to play the wave clear champions, is going back currently, so might lose out a little bit, but with the Feral Scream on a fairly short cooldown, should be able to clear things out, and I love this swap instead. Go to the top lane if you're the Chiefs.
Absolutely. That's the lane where you can afford to go. Of course, Vladimir's not going to build any armor necessarily early. Might be looking towards the Zhonya's as second item pick. That's a common pick, but the back has been stopped, and he's going to have a lot harder time bullying around the duo lane of Radio and Rose.
Yeah, just can't, again, get that 1v1 potential that Perfection absolutely loves here. We'll try and push the waves off as best he can, but Lucian, no slouch in any sort of fast push situation. This turret, it's going down, Papa Smithy.
It's going down. Still relatively healthy, though. It's at half health, but the top lane turret, that's the one that's low. It falls down. That's two turrets. The global pressure starting to come through from the Chiefs. They have the first dragon. The second dragon's already respawned, and that's 2 turrets to 0.
Yeah, and they're going to probably look for the last one there in mid at some point. Radio and Rosie continuing to push slightly here as well. Actually going to move in with Spooks and trying for another early tier 2 rotation. The Dial's on top of their first dragon, but the Chiefs might get a turret for it.
Vladimir is completely zoned away from the turret. Nothing he can do despite having pretty damn good wave clear. The Dials will pick up an answering dragon, but losing 2 turrets for a dragon, and in a turret especially, not an ideal trade for the Direwolves.
We've seen this quite a bit from the Chiefs, actually, with the Elise, I believe, in their first semi-final game. Really valued that top tier 2 turret just to get the top laners back, push out Vision aggressively around from the Baron, which makes sense. Second dragon, not that important. First Baron, much more.
And there's another factor there, Page Time, as well. You get a lot of control over the Direwolves blue buff if you're the Chiefs in this situation. You've got Anivia. Getting her a permanent uptime on blue buff. Okay, it's not quite permanent, but it might as well be. Cho'Gath obviously needs the blue buff. He hasn't gone for his CDR item first. Very long cooldowns, and it's one of the downfalls of Cho'Gath in general, is those cooldowns are long. And if you miss things, you don't do a lot. That's the initiation.
Yeah, Swiffer coming in, but Swiper dives in with a 2-man ulti. Q will not land as Chuffer has a great stun there on Annie. Good knock up there as well for Sharp, but the Chiefs, they're in the mid lane. They're going to try and push down the third outer turret.
The disengaged Tibbers, you don't often talk about that, but it was completely on point by Chuffer, and the re-engaged by Soul Strikes. I think he's gone a little bit too aggressive.
He does have his ulti, but he's quite low. Cocoon will be flashed there as Spooks looks to move in again. A great double stun there coming through. Chuffer almost goes down, but Perfection down here now as well. Repel will just get Spooks to safety as they're able to buy some more time. The Chiefs still pushing. Radiant now going in deep, flashing onto King, but might have made a mistake. Ulti wide though from Soulstrike, gets cocooned up, and Radiant gets the kill.
And all the early rotations, just the advantage of the mid-game comp makes that Radiant flash look good. It was a terrible flash, no vision whatsoever around the enemy Raptors, but it doesn't matter when you're already ahead in the game. And the Chiefs are forcing the Direwolves to react and fight in the early game. This has never been the MO of a Direwolves victory.
No, they love to, again, have the reactionary game scale up and then fight once they've got their big carries going. But third outer turret, fourth in the game total there for the Chiefs, Will 4. It's equal on Dragons, but those turrets, and especially that gold, not even close.
It's just not equal in rotation space time. So great have been the rotations from the Chiefs against a Sivir comp. That's the critical factor in this situation, is that with Sivir Annie, you're expecting strong reactions from the Direwolves, but then you have the Sejuani who doesn't really fit with that. In general, the Direwolves, especially with no CDR on Cho'Gath, if they don't hit their skill shots on Soul Strikes and Sharp, they just flat out lose a team fight. There's so much downside to a fight coming out from the Direwolves. Whereas every skirmish, you've got Elise, Cocoon, you've got Flash Frost, both on a short cooldown. Skirmish value, it's ahead, a bit massively ahead for the Chiefs. Even went for that early power spiking AD carry and Lucian, and they're forcing Direwolves to fight just because they're going to take down every turret in the game before Vladimir even has 2 items.
And you're right, it's not rotation Sivir here that we're seeing, but that's not not what 5.6 Sivir, especially in this comp's being picked for. Get your big tanks in, get your melee sustained DPS mage in Vladimir deep into enemy territory for big team fights. The issue though, it's the same problem for the Wolves. They look to scale up into the late game and really let Perfection do a lot of the heavy lifting, and right now, Chiefs, as you said, just shutting that plan down.
So one thing about Sivir is, one of the kind of genius things about the Chiefs' rotation to top is that although Sivir hasn't necessarily been about mowing down the first 3 turrets when you're a Sivir comp like she was before, when her laning matchups were really, really strong, still, often the first rotation from bottom is to mid lane, and of course Sivir has that on the hunt, can react to those pushes very, very easily. But going for the option on the other side of the map, it's a bit from the Direwolves playbook, to be honest. They've been the ones taking advantage of the fact that Sivir, although she's happy in this bottom lane wave clearing, she can't react to multiple members in the top lane without losing on a hell of a lot of farm.
Good mind game there from Swiffer. Pop sharp into the Flash Frost for a bit of damage, but Cho'Gath very tanky. Abyssal Scepter done. Fiendish Codex now coming through for that cooldown reduction you talked about, Papa, that's so important. And getting tanky with the Feast Tax, now level 11 for rank 2 of that ulti. Sharp very tanky, but the Chiefs not letting up on the pressure.
And Rosie, the moment he pings level 9, instantly goes back and buys the Oracle's red trinket upgrade just to be able to start clearing out the vision. It's already looking very dark map here coming through for the Direwolves. Chiefs, they want to just double down on their excellent early game, ensure they deny every vision possible. 2 pink wards up, giving a little bit of like pressure possibilities for Vladimir and Cho'Gath. But in terms of just global pressure, map pressure, it's almost absent from the Direwolves.
And I mean, the Chiefs do have to keep it up, though. They've got great pressure, like you said. The Wolves playing very reactively all game long, just from the draft even, as you look into this one. But the Chiefs have to keep up the pressure, because Perfection farming now in his happy place in the top lane, getting relatively left alone in this situation. So Vision coming down, next Dragon up in a minute 25. But the Chiefs, if they ever let up for too long, there is weirdly enough a timer in this game.
There is a timer, patient time, but the thing to note, as we do see the Cocoon land, it's going to be a bit of harass damage coming through. Vladimir was freezing the lane in top. Sivir was freezing the lane in bottom. This is a different thing coming from the Direwolves. Usually they're both pushing and causing pressure. Having no pressure means that this red side jungle, and hell, even the blue side jungle to a large degree, is very, very risky for Direwolves to enter. Look at Soulstrike's level 9 to level 10. Doesn't really have any items or economy going. He's another person. He's another person that scales so well with items. This jungler in particular is going to be held down massively in this game, and it's only going to be useful for the Glacial Prison. And after that, I mean, he had to go Sightstone just for relevance.
And that's not what Soulstrikes has been known for in his season. Again, big Rek'Sai, big Jarvan player. Spook's going to get initiated on. Shuffle will follow him, but no stun quite yet. And Swiffer is in the area, going to lock up the Sejuani. Good damage coming through, but the ulti will nail them there to sort of seal them in sharp. Now zoning them off with the Rupture. Everyone's safe for now, but things getting tense. Dragon up in 20 seconds.
This is certainly not a Sejuani you see in solo queue, who's got a few items, just looking super strong, who is a threat just in and of herself. This is a Sejuani who's far behind in the game. Only useful for an ultimate and just a few defensive wards. All those wards have been cleared out. Not getting much value from the Sightstone now, and Spooks gets actually the Cocoon onto Chopper, and there's the catch.
Very, very nice. We're going to force the flash from Chopper. Big Frostbite there, going to put Chopper at 50% health, but with the pressure on the Chiefs, honestly didn't even need it. They'll be able to take away their second dragon.
I mean, it's the world's safest dragon at this point. You saw the flashes down from Chopper. Soulstrikes had to use the Glacial Prison defensively just 30, 40 seconds ago. It's on a very long cooldown in the early levels, so the second dragon for Chiefs is going to be completely uncontested.
You can see that gold lead still strong for the Chiefs, about 5,500 gold, but Perfection farming away. First one to hit 200 CS there along with Swiffer, so good numbers there. King's actually rotated up. That's a good move there for some pressure. Will get themselves a turret. The Chiefs, so looking to answer in the mid lane.
Honestly, that's probably the first time in the history of the Direwolves 2015 where King and Perfection were in the same lane previous to about 35 minutes. They've always been pushing down waves. That's for once you see King actually has a CS disadvantage, 20 CS behind Radia. They do pick up that first turret, though, get that first taste of the global gold. We saw in the one loss the Chiefs had against Fortnite, it was a similar sort of gold advantage the Chiefs weren't able to take advantage of. There's still, as you said, a timer on this game. We need to see them pushing for more, because they need to be at least monopolizing the blue and red buffs. That's the least, like, smallest objective they need to start moving on towards, because just Dragons in a 2-for-1 at 22 minutes, it's not enough.
And I like the defensive area from Direwolves there around their own blue buff. Double pink wards, lots of green wards, littering the area there as well. Perfection has gone back. He's got an Abyssal Scepter now, so so double Abyssal, if they ever get into any sort of big melee range team fight, possibly with that Sivir ulti, they will rip through the squishies on Chiefs.
And this is just a lapse in the game plan coming through from the Chiefs. They should be contesting the blue buff on spawn. They have 2 turrets down in their top lane. There's just the minion waves are helping them out. They've had vision there previously. They should have had a timer down and be contesting for that blue buff just to buff up Swiffer and keep down Sharp even further. So the fact that Direwolves have been able to claim their blue buffs, that's more than they would have expected given how the first 20 minutes went.
And look, now King feels a bit more comfortable, overextending a bit now. Got the zeal.
I mean, look at this mini-map. There's no vision anywhere near. It is not a safe spot to be farming young Sivir, but able to get out there, push in the wave, and suddenly the CS starts to come up for the Direwolves, and suddenly the Chiefs, they need to really start formulating a plan. This is a settled lineup. They've always had clear shot call, and they need to show it right now, because at the moment, the last 5 minutes in particular, there hasn't been a lot of pressure on the Direwolves.
Now let's talk about scaling for a bit here, Papa Smithy, as we have a slight lull in the game. We talked about the Wolves, they love to scale. You can see by the champions here, the Cho, the Vlad especially, even the Sejuani here, looking to scale up here. The Chiefs do have some insurance, so they've got the Sion and the Anivia.
And it's not a crazy scaling cop coming from the Direwolves. They have the likes of Sivir, who's best in the early game and the mid game. Still can be relevant in the late game, but not against super tanks. And Soul Strikes, he's positioned very aggressively.
Getting dove, but not taking too much damage. And a bit of a dive here. Chopper coming in there with a Tiva. Swiper will get locked up, but Spooks has to get out of there. Maybe doesn't have anywhere good to go. King, I think, flashed away there. He was scared of Swiffer coming through, but Chopper goes down to Radiant just off the top there. Died around his own turret. Sharp almost getting locked in. Perfection going in massive onto Swiffer. Wants him, but the Hemo Plague will pop. It won't quite kill him. And I think the egg might even be there anyway. The Chiefs a bit messy, but they'll keep pushing.
And you actually see the Monsoon pop. They want to keep going. I don't know if they can dive, but they're thinking about it.
Swiper wants to dive. Soul Strikes will be the target. Swiffer will get that kill into the Anivia, and the tier 2 turret will go with it.
And the person that was held down the most is Sejuani, positioned aggressively, but didn't have the items to be able to impact the fight at the front. Just died, unfortunately. So Chiefs, they finally get another objective. Those 5 minutes, they were good for the Direwolves, but you can see the Chiefs still winning those team fights.
And again, the Chiefs have shown plenty of proficiency fighting together, especially when behind. That's been one of the hallmarks of games where they actually have been behind in the regular season. They're capable of fighting here. I think the comps are fairly comparable as far as power goes. It's just a matter of can the Wolves get to their comfy spot.
I mean, it's an item timings question as well. You look at this at Swiper. He is shrugging off any semblance of burst damage with the Spirit Visage into the Warmog. So much health already stacked up. Also, the other factor, Elise has got a Snowball Aegis. Still working on the Aegis himself is Soul Strikes. That's going to be very relevant against double AP coming out from the Direwolves, and he already had the Aegis. Now it's 10-stack Rod of Ages and the Seraph's Embrace. Hell, even the Haunting Guys for a bit of mid-game power. Just the builds, it's always one item more for Swiffer and the Chiefs in general, and that's off the back of a 6k gold lead for the Chiefs.
Yeah, and that is just the reality of the early pressure and the lead that the Chiefs have been able to build here. So continuing to play on the front foot, but another tower goes down there on the bottom side. King, no wards. I mean, it actually does have some wards, but no right to be there that
I can understand the no wards. You didn't need to look in the minimap most times, just proclaim that. In this situation, had some wards, but definitely no aggressive wards. But still, that's another bonus objective coming through from the Direwolves. It closes the goal lead, but not dramatically. You feel like Direwolves have done better than expected, especially after losing Flash on all their top side of the jungle and a kill in level 1. And in general, Perfection's been the big benefactor. 63 CS. He actually averages a positive CS over enemy laner of 63.5 CS a game, and it looks like he's right on track.
And, you know, Perfection just keeps getting stronger, and that's always been a worry sign there. But now he's going to get caught up. Spooks will find him at the pool coming in. King going to move in. Shuffer flashing very aggressively onto Swiffer as King will come in there as well. Swiper, though, has dove in there, and Perfection a little too low to fight. That will force the flash from Elise as the Culling moves in onto King. Almost snipes him, but the body locks will save him. Rady there gets ulted there as it moves in for Vladimir, but Soul Strikes will go down to Spooks. Perfection fighting 1v3, almost able to get them down, but the shield's too strong. Too much power from the Chief. Sharp, a great rupture. He's going to get cut off by a stun. Does get picked up. Tornado comes in, and that's 3 for 0 for the Chiefs.
Yeah, the first pick came on to Perfection. He's the only one who was actually item tuned to fight, but burst down to 30% health. They thought about the re-engage. To be honest, they just stayed too long. They weren't fighting over any objectives. The Direwolves could have just disengaged, but it looks like it's going to pass over Baron to the Chiefs.
Yeah, poor Scuttlecrab sort of dies in the collateral there as well. A Swiper roared him into the pit, but Baron getting aggressed on will go down here. Soul Strike's not in the area despite being alive, and 28 minutes. The Chiefs now with the first Baron of the final.
And this is the first big advantage the Chiefs have been able to claim is the Baron. They still haven't broken the base. There's still hope coming through for the Direwolves, but it's going to be the Dragon picked up as well, the third Dragon, for even more mobility. The 5% movement, it just helps with the rotations, which have already, barring those two turrets, been very on point from the Chiefs.
Dragon will melt there to the Chiefs' damage right now, and that'll be their third. Should help with those rotations moving between the turrets, and there's not that many left, just the tier 2 there for the Direwolves, and then it's inhibitor turrets and eventually those inhibitors.
Absolutely, that's the thing. They've done everything but break the base. So we're going to move into a replay. Perfection, as we enter the screen, is already very low. So we see Chuffer going aggressively, trying to influence the backline. He actually chases Swiffer out of the fight, which is pretty good support for mid laner, to be honest. But the re-engage, Radiant almost DPS's down King with just the culling. There's a lot of disengage coming through from the Direwolves. It's actually a disengage Hemo play, despite the fact that the ability has no CC. So it forces Perfection to go back in the fight. Again, he's caught away. And finally, Sharp caught by the flash. Was just at maximum range coming through. All of that was preventable. They could have disengaged from the fight, but they stayed too long.
That was a really sick culling by Radio, I have to say, lining it up perfectly to basically take King out of the fight despite not getting the kill. And the Chiefs continuing to play with strength here. Closer to 8,000 gold ahead now. Yes, the Wolves are farming, but like you've already said, Papa, the lead right now just a little too large.
And Radio has absolutely gone for the optimal build in this situation. You look down this Direwolves lineup, there's what? One armor item, and that's on the Vladimir in terms of scaling up towards the Zhonya's with that Seeker's arm guard. No other armor. You're going for Infinity Edge Bloodthirster. You're going to do so much damage.
And you can see the damage now. Swiper charges in. Sharp will go down to Sion, actually, as Swiper gets that kill for himself. But Radiator's doing a ton of damage right now on the Lucian. And even the big health Cho'Gath, no armor to speak of
and
right now.
Those long cooldown CC or teamfight utility abilities like Hemo Plague and Glacial Prison are always being used defensively, never for an aggressive option. They haven't been able to look for a pick of their own. And the Chiefs, they take down the last of the outer turrets. And all they need to do now is break the base.
And look at Swiper, Chain Vest in there as well, just tanking up the turret damage as they wait for the minion wave to come in. Swaps over to Radiant. Bit of a misstep
Siege
there.
Minions DPSing it down as well.
Yeah, Minion doing well there. Swiffer now tanking it up. He's actually pretty tanky on Anivia as well. And the base will get broken. Perfection might have been caught away. And that Lucian crit did a lot of work there. Looks for the slow King trying to get aggressively forward, but he can't protect the inhibitor. The Direwolves might look for an exit kill, but the Chiefs, they break the base.
It's the downside of these long cooldown initiations that they've had to use defensively. They know Glacial Prison is down. Truffer's only now getting flash up. They can't re-engage, and when those abilities are on cooldown, Chiefs don't have to respect the Direwolves.
And that's definitely the thing for me has been this Sejuani. Soul Strike, fantastic jungler, had arguably the most impressive looking season as far as first splits go, and he was known for reactionary junglers, for being in the right place for his team. Now Truffer going to flash over, they're going to try and make it work. Spook's going to get low silence there and will go down to King. So a 5v4 now. Actually, never mind, Truffer died as well. Make it 4v4 as Sharp gets chunked up. Perfection trying to carry in the front line, but forced to pull away. Swiffer going so aggressive, wants it, but just gets egged instead. Swiper will protect the egg, though. Just a bit of Boomerang Blade damage coming through, and the Chiefs keep pushing.
Love Swiper channeling that decimating smash just for zone control, ensuring no one could kill the egg, despite it being very tanky, and now just tanking up that inner turret. It's going to be the inhibitor turret down, you'd have to think, with all the damage on Radiant.
Yeah, and even on a champion like Anivia, Swiffer still trademark aggression. Radiant going to turn it around, killed, not quite there. Culling, though, down onto Sharp. He's trying to find someone to feast, but no good target. Chopper coming back into the fight, though, and that's going to force the Chiefs away. King, fade away. Boomerang Blade gets onto Swiper. Perfection will zone away the Scion, and the Direwolves hold for now.
But that could have gone so much worse from the Chiefs. The fancy feat from Radiant to relentless pursuit away from the Glacial Prison and get trade damage in. Almost DPS down King himself. He couldn't commit to the fight. Only one member goes down for the inhibitor turret. It's still a massive win for the Chiefs.
And look at the difference in builds there for AD carries. 3 items done there for King. He's got the Last Whisper, the Phantom Dancer, and that Infinity Edge, but aggressive items for Raider. You mentioned them already, and even on top of that, a luxury QSS as well.
And that's the kind of the secret thing about AD carries is you always want to go for that Bloodthirster third, because as Radio was showing, you just do so much damage to structures in particular. The thing about Lucian is, okay, he's 500 range. It's risky to do turret damage. Usually you have to respect the CC coming through from the Direwolves, especially all the initiation options. But with the Glacial Prison down, you do so much turret damage, and you have that lifesteal and shield from the Bloodthirster that you can just DPS it down. And although King has the holy triumvirate of AD carry items, Infinity Edge, Phantom Dancer, and Last Whisper, without the lifesteal, he just can't commit to fights.
No, and I mean, At this point, the Glacial Prison's even going to get shrugged off by Radier. He's fairly mobile, but now with the QSS, he can just get out of any of the major ultimates. Unless he gets hit by a Rupture, which would be very poor positioning on his part, he should be fine. And the Chiefs, they're going to keep pushing here. King, by the way, farming down the bottom lane.
333 CS, 281 to 188 is the top, and they're getting the CS, but the difference between the Chiefs and other teams, they're breaking the base.
Oh, Perfection stunned up there as well. Beautiful layering by the Chiefs. Now the damage going to come in. A great silence from Chuff will zone them away. Chuff will actually use the ulti to kind of zone them out as well. So a bit of a reset. Soulstrike's going to look for it back and gets knocked up by the Tornado. Culling going to come down and Radier gets the kill. Ulti already down. Spooks got Hemo Plague there. Might go down, but not quite. Swiper actually low will go down, but now he's back in his passive form. King just gets out from under that wall there. Perfection trying to DPS them, but it's not enough, and the second inhib falls.
The hilarious factor is they actually got that inhibitor through the Undead Scion's passive. They're still looking for the engage, but the Talisman's been popped.
Oh, Swiffer has been stunned, though. Will get the kill with Perfection, and a couple of sloppy exit kills there. Dial's picking up extra gold.
But I mean, Swiper in his passive form actually was doing a lot more damage because of the increased attack speed to the inhibitor. Basically soloed it down with no risk of Radier, a 500 rage AD carry getting engaged upon. That Nexus turret is so low, but it just survives.
Yeah, somehow survives. Good aggro juggling there by Perfection. Now going to meet the super minion wave with the Vlad and Zona out. Need to see Large Rod is there for him, so Zonya's Hourglass on the way in level 17. The Direwolves, the gold deficit's quite large still at this stage of the game, but they hold on for 10, 15 more minutes, and all of a sudden, the deficit just doesn't look so bad.
But you start looking at this game, Pastry Time, and you can see what the Chiefs have done different against the Direwolves that other teams haven't. You're starting to hit those item timers. You look down at Vlad, you look at his CS, and like, wow, 105 CS up. He's hitting those item timers he needs. Siv's got all their damage, but the difference is that in all that time, in the 34 minutes, they've gotten 4 Dragons, a Baron, 8 turrets, and 2 inhibitors. Unfortunately for the Direwolves, if you keep your base up and you delay it to this point, absolutely you're doing fine. You're team fight ready. But any team fight goes towards the Chiefs, the game's over.
And it's just been a constant delaying of that power window, just taking just enough so the Direwolves have to keep playing on the back foot that's gotten the Chiefs to this position, despite all the farm that the Wolves have been able to find. A second Baron will get a look at now by the Chiefs, but the Direwolves looking to contest.
And the big thing to me, difference between Spooks and Soulstrikes, you have to say, we already mentioned the Sejuani held down 0, 4, and 2. 2 assists on an initiating tank is so low, but they only have 4 kills. This rotation's fine, but what are they rotating against? Baron's being DPS down.
Baron falling so swiftly now as well. Radier chunking it through there with the help of everyone else. Spooks will get it, and the Dial's not even in time to initiate. King trying there has actually popped the ulti. Locker moves in. Chopper goes in massively aggressive there, but the zoning Q from Sion will keep them up. Perfection will get DPS down and forced to pull early. Does heal it up. Swiper keep going in, and they're still fighting. Sion will go down. Dial will somehow get that kill with the Baron up. Chiefs fighting with the Chiefs now on the right side of the map, and Soulstrike's gonna get caught up there. Just tanky enough though. Great Wall gonna flash in and nowhere to go. Swiffer gets that kill.
And finally the Direwolves get the team fight they've been waiting 35 minutes for. Perfection with a wonderful pull, but might still be dead.
Oh, Repel coming through. That will follow in. Perfection now gonna get chased in, and movement speed's good. Perfection doing just enough jukes, buying time, or at least trying to. Zonya's perfect there by Perfection. Pull there as well. Again, just buying time. Will go down here. Swiffer gonna claim the kill again, but they protect the base.
Perfection with the wonderful Vladimir mechanics, and just the sidestep on the Cocoon was just beautiful work. Bought a lot of time. Again, it's time that unfortunately the Direwolves, you don't feel like they're going to be able to put it to good use. It almost feels like one of those games where you're a Nasus with 500 stacks, but your base is completely ruined. And the Chiefs, they're taking no liberties. They want to keep pushing.
Rosie actually got watered in a bush with his oracles there and apparently didn't do anything about it, but the Chiefs just want the objective, maybe realize the ward not that relevant at this stage of the game. Mid inhibitor will fall now. The Chiefs massively ahead as far as Golden, setting up for a kill. Soulstrike gets stunned, but the Chiefs starting their siege.
They have to wait for their cooldowns. They're not up.
Swiper going in there. King forced to flash away. Good scream there. Coming through now as Cho'Gath will move in for the Rupture. Radier getting aggressed on, but the siege minions taking out the turret. King in a lot of trouble, but a great spell shield will keep him safe. Sharp trying to disengage. They're buying time for Perfection. He is back now with the Vladimir, but the Chiefs still moving forward. Now going to run in. Great 3-man stun though from Swiffer, and they'll let the siege minions do the work for them.
Speaking of siege, the Culling's out. Sharp's low.
Sharp in trouble there. Does go down to Radier's Q that finds him through it. Double kill there coming through for Lucian. Chiefs going to take the last inhibitor turret. Tibbers gets a love tap there as well from the piercing light. The base in tatters. Chiefs will take game 1.
Yeah, Perfection's actually still at the back of this fight, was high health for most of it, but it's not going to matter. We see the team here still with level heads, despite the fact this will be the 1-0 for the Chiefs.
Yeah, Rock back in their chest. Spooks kind of comforting his teammates, saying, well done, but this is the first game. We don't have time to mess around. A best of 5 is a long series for any team, and the Chiefs, being the veterans they are, they know that better than anyone.
And it's no coincidence that of the 4 defeats that the Direwolves have, maybe 5 it is now, 3 of them have come against the Chiefs. Every meeting they've been able to rotate around the mid game, and despite the fact that the meta seems to be shifting towards the late game, no one told the Chiefs because they take it down early.
And you can see King there as well, just on your screen. Chuffer kind of looking over at him saying, I'm sorry, buddy. King, a young player, maybe a bit hot-headed, and looked not very happy after that loss.
And I felt like a lot of the game was symbolizing the last fight where Perfection was heavy. He had lots of items, but he was at the back being ignored because the base was being taken around him. A lot of this game was played around Perfection. So instead of just targeting Perfection like they did the last 2 times, they played it around him, and damn, it looked pretty good.
And again, the Wolves had some good spots there. The window was almost open for them to get back into that game, but at the end of the day, the Chiefs just got enough ahead that the Direwolves couldn't scale what they wanted. You know what? We're going to go throw it out to Atlas in the arena for a bit more breakdown on that game.